This is the Main Street Preps High School Football Wrap-Up Show, brought to you by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Fans, don't let fans drive drunk.
Welcome in to week 3 of the Main Street Preps High School Football Wrap-Up Show, presented by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. I'm Chris Yao, your host. We've got a ton of information to give you throughout the rest of this show. Make sure to stay tuned as reporters from across the mid-state give you a little bit of an idea of what happened in each of their areas over the weekend in high school football. Also want to say thanks again to everyone who is tuning in to the Main Street Media Game of the Week. Don't forget that Thursday night will be at Giles County. Wade Neely will be on the call as they take on Lawrence County in the cowbell game. So a lot of things to get excited for this week, but let's go take one more look back at week 3, and we'll start down in Giles County with Wade Neely, who's got you covered in both Giles and Lawrence County.
Hey folks, Wade Neely here, sports editor at the Pulaski Citizen, also contributor over at the Lawrence County Advocate. Time for a wrap-up of our 3 Lawrence County squads and our 2 Giles County-based squads in week 3. And man, we had a lot of success, and we also had a little bit of heartbreak, but by and large, a pretty successful week for our area squads. We do go over to Lawrence County, west of here in Pulaski, to kind of get things kick-started. And we begin with Loretto. The Mustangs, after suffering a loss to rival Lawrence County just a couple of weeks ago, they bounced back in a big way as they go on the road and throttle Harpeth 34-6. Nicholas McDowell was running wild in that game with 3 touchdowns for the Mustangs on the ground. So a good win and a good bounce-back win for the Mustangs. Speaking of good wins, I mean, they're all good for Summertown, and they're coming in bunches to start the season as the Eagles, Coach Winfrey's squad, improves to 3-0, coming up with a big victory versus Hickman County. And really, Summertown at this point, it's kind of advanced beyond a feel-good story. They're showing up and they're taking care of business every week now. So after posting shutouts in the first 2 weeks, they do give up 12 points. But again, they do win at 26-12. So Coach Winfrey's bunch flying high. The Eagles off to a great start. And it's going to be fun to watch them as the season progresses and maybe see how far they can rise and really maybe look at potentially ascending the standings and getting a quality berth into the 2A playoffs. Big matchup coming up between them and Loretto. We'll have more on that later in the week. We close over in Lawrence County with a tough one as the Lincoln County Falcons took care of Lawrence County in that one, 28-19. That game was played at Hendrick-Stagg Stadium, and Lawrence County, that was a game that coming into it, we thought whoever wins this game is going to have some potential inside position coming down the stretch later this season for a potential playoff berth. So keep that game in mind as Lincoln County got things started and kind of took care of business there. Brett Dobbs had a big game for the Falcons, and Lawrence County, hard as they tried and as well as they played since dropping their opener, couldn't quite get it done. Ian Clayton and Pettigrew having big games yet again for Lawrence County. Clayton with 61 yards on the ground. Pettigrew with 44 yards on the ground. More on them again later as they have a big showdown coming up in the cowbell game on Thursday of this week versus rival Giles County. Speaking of Giles County, we go to Giles County, and we start with Richland as the Raiders, man, they got off to a great start in this game versus Wayne County, but they had to hang on for dear life as it was 34-22. Richland surviving, Richland advancing. They get their first region win, but that was a game that they were up 21-0 and kind of ended up hanging on, like I said, right there at the end of the game to pull out the win. Wayne County scores. Richland is up again 21-0 at the end of the first. You're thinking, okay, the Raiders are absolutely flying. They're cruising. But Wayne County clawed back in this thing and got back within a single possession in the fourth quarter. But Richland does close the gap. They do have a nice drive to put points away, put distance between them as they recover an onside kick. And then Luke Eastlick, who ends up with 3 touchdowns in the night, pops loose for his third, and the Raiders pull away. Be fun to watch them as they continue. They're playing their first home game of the season this Friday versus Fairview. That's going to be a big game over at the Wayne Hobbs Memorial Stadium. Speaking of big games, Giles County's got a big game coming up Thursday versus Lawrence County. The cowbell game will be played a day early this year, but Giles County's playing with a little bit of momentum as they picked up a nice win, 37-7 on the road versus Fayetteville in Friday night's matchup, as GCHS took care of business, 38-7, excuse me. Giles County took care of business, really kind of got their offense humming early. Caleb Oates had 4 touchdowns in the win. Also, we saw Xavier Randolph throw his first touchdown, the sophomore quarterback for Giles County. He tosses one to Kareem Bryant. The defense took care of business. Fayetteville's a pretty good 2A team, but Giles County's defense held them in check. They did not score until it was 38-0, so Fayetteville scores the final points of the ball game. Christian Sentz had a short field goal for Giles County in that one. So good effort from Oates. Again, 4 touchdowns, over 150 yards on the ground. He is quietly becoming an absolute force for Giles County's offense, and so they're fun to watch. All of our teams are playing well. We're picking up wins all across Lawrence and Giles County, and we move into week 4 this week. But for now, that is a recap on week 3 in our Pulaski Citizen and Lawrence County Advocate coverage areas. Wade Neely saying so long, and we'll see you next time.
Wade, thanks so much. We greatly appreciate it. Let's go a little bit north now, up to Maury County, where Maurice Patton has you covered, including the Main Street Media Game of the Week last week, Columbia Academy and Friendship Christian.
I'm Maurice Patton, sports editor at Main Street Maury. Week 3 of the high school football season is in the books down here, and defense and special teams played a particular role in this weekend's ball games. Let's start over at Columbia Academy, where Alex Heffington's blocked punt and subsequent scoop and score from 20 yards out gave the Columbia Academy Bulldogs some second half momentum, putting them back in front in an eventual 21-15 win over visiting Friendship Christian. Following Heffington's score, the Bulldogs got a 41-yard touchdown pass from Stephen Neves to Wyatt Ayers to put that game away. So again, Columbia Academy bounces back from a tough loss in week 2 with a 21-15 win over visiting Friendship Christian. Over at Columbia Central, the Lions scored a defensive touchdown for the second week in a row, did not give up an offensive touchdown for the second week in a row, and improved to 2-1 with a 24-0 win over visiting Hunters Lane. Quan Sims with an 85-yard pick six just before halftime, and that one rounded out the scoring for the Lions, who won 22-2 the week prior over Dixon County. Spring Hill almost had a pick six, and it would have been a decisive one had it stood, but Reeves Gill's return from midfield was negated by a roughing the passer penalty, and instead of Spring Hill walking off with its first victory of the year, the Raiders fell 19-14 to Maplewood in that one. So the Raiders remaining winless with that tough loss there at 0-3. Also, Mount Pleasant goes on the road in Region 5 2A play, picks up a 21-12 win down at Waverly in their region opener. Avery Johnson gets the Tigers on the board, and a couple of rushing touchdowns late in that one put the game away for the road Tigers as they improved to 3-0 overall and 1-0 in Region 5 2A play. Also, Summit goes on the road, falls 20-0 up at Green Hill, but it's 6-0 going into the fourth quarter before Kenan Burrows scored a couple of rushing touchdowns for the Hawks in that one. So another tough loss for Summit, falling to 1-2 with that loss. Independence broke its scoring drought, kicked a first half field goal, but trailed 7-3 up at Summit and wound up falling in that one at Centennial, wound up falling 20-13 to the Cougars. Independence going to 0-3 with that loss. That does it for Main Street Maury football. We'll see y'all later this week.
Great stuff as always, Maurice. All right, we're going to go over now to Murfreesboro, where Monte Hale Jr. has you covered with a report from the Murfreesboro area.
Hello, I'm Monte Hale, sports editor of the Murfreesboro Post, and 3 weeks now in the books for Rutherford County High School football. We'll look back at last Friday night with some interesting results. We'll start off with a inter-county matchup. It was Smyrna 30, Siegel 13. For Siegel, Braylon Albea, 69 yards and a TD. And Tristan Thornton threw for 170 yards Unfortunately, most of that came in the first half. Smyrna had a big night, got their first win of the season. Ryan Carver, 2 rushing TDs. Amari Hill, 5 tackles and an interception. Britton Judkins threw for 140 yards. Tyreek McCarver, Mr. Everything, or do everything, 5 tackles, a pick, and 78 yards receiving. And Aiden Augustine got into the running attack with 144 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Oakland defeated Haywood 49-6, the number 1 Patriots, still undefeated. Pretty close first half, first quarter anyway. Oakland led 7-6. They took advantage of some mistakes by Haywood. Tamari Hill had 82 yards rushing. Chase Bandy, they called him their cover corner. Well, he had a 79-yard interception return. Tamari Hill also had a 94-yard kickoff return. And Kyler Creasy threw for 144 yards and 4 touchdowns. So the Patriots scored in every facet of the game. Ravenwood 14, Blackman 7. This one kind of surprised me. I thought Blackman might be overmatched, but it was no score forever. Ravenwood went up 7-0. It stayed that way forever. And about 5 minutes to go in the game, Raven punched a touchdown in, made it hold, and they win a tight game 14-7. Jonathan Hamby threw for a touchdown to John Dragu for Blackman. And, you look at this team, they're 1-2, but they have played 2 state-ranked opponents. So I think this schedule in the non-conference is going to help them once they get into region play. Stewart's Creek all over Hillsboro, 35-0. The Redhawks bounced back from previous week loss to Blackman. They're now 2-1. Jerry Taylor threw for 2 scores. Jeremy Smith had over 100 yards receiving in 2 scores. And Caleb Floyd had 85 yards on the ground and 2 TDs. Defensively, Taj Roseburg had an interception for the second straight week. This one was a pick 6. Tullahoma 21, Rockvale 19. This one kind of surprised me. Romeo George did rush for 150 yards for Rockvale, and Javion Ellett threw for over 200 yards. Last year, Rockvale was a tough team to figure out. This year, they're kind of already a tough team to figure out. When they're good, they're really good, and then sometimes they don't play well. MTCS gets their first win of the season. Of course, the defending state champions, they beat Grace Christian 21-14. Senior quarterback Briggs Boyd threw for over 200 yards and 2 scores, and also rushed for over 100 yards, so a big night for him. Moore County edged Eagleville 21-14. The Eagles dropped to 1-2, 1-1 in league play. Correction, that's 0-1 in league play. Caleb Sneitzer, 81 yards and a touchdown. Noah Lilly also had a 65-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. And defensively, Alex Bryan had 10 tackles and Marshall Spann had 8. PCA, 38, Mount Juliet Christian, nothing. Josh Meyer rushed for 3 touchdowns. Aiden Bowden caught a touchdown pass from Taden Marks. The Lions are now 2-1 on the season, and trying to establish themselves as a playoff team, which they were last year. Wilson Central 14, Laverne 6. Tough one for Laverne. They're 0-3, and they've all been tough. In fact, Laverne's 3 losses by a combined 19 points. So that's a look at last week's action on the gridiron in high school football. Again, I'm Monte Hale, sports editor of the Murfreesboro Post.
Big week in Murfreesboro over there. All right, let's go to that northeast corner where Tommy Bryan has got you covered from the Wilson Post.
Hello, everybody. This is Tommy Bryan, sports editor of the Wilson Post in Lebanon. And here's a look at how the 7 high school football teams in Wilson County fared Friday night, September the 6th. Lebanon blanked Warren County by a score of 35-0 at Nunley Stadium as the Blue Devil defensive unit allowed just 22 yards rushing. Carter McPeak blocked a Pioneer punt. Quarterback Isaiah Mariah scored a pair of rushing touchdowns, and Deuce Edwards sprinted for 136 yards and a score. Mount Juliet remained undefeated by blanking Gallatin 27-0 in a Region 4 6A contest at Roger Perry Field. The Green Wave had 5 turnovers in a driving rain, while Mount Juliet's John Michael Crudup sloshed for 115 yards and a touchdown on 20 carries. Wilson Central managed a 14-6 homecoming victory over Laverne last Friday with outstanding play on special teams. Central junior Evan Bragg blocked 3 punts, and Mike Palmer scored the game's first points when he fell on an errant punt snap in the end zone. Green Hill quarterback Cannon Burrows put up impressive numbers in a 20-0 home victory over Summit High School. Burrows completed 14 passes for 133 yards. He also ran for 125 yards and scored 2 touchdowns on 18 attempts as the Hawks defensive unit pitched a second consecutive shutout. Watertown's Purple Tigers slipped to 0-3 following a 33-28 home loss to Sequatchie County at Robinson Stadium. Sophomore quarterback Blake Waldorf put on a show. He completed 37 of 53 pass attempts for 342 yards and 4 touchdowns. Mount Juliet Christian Academy was knocked from the ranks of the undefeated following a convincing 38-0 loss to Providence Christian at Middle Tennessee State University's Johnny Red Floyd Stadium. Joshua Meyer rushed for 3 touchdowns for PCA. And finally, Friendship Christian School slipped to 1-2 following Friday's 21-15 loss at Columbia Academy. Senior Carlando Barton led the Commanders with 79 yards rushing and a pair of touchdowns. That's a look at high school football from Friday night, September the 6th in Wilson County. I'm Tommy Bryan for Main Street Preps, and I will talk to you later.
Thanks, Tommy. Always great to hear from you. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we've got more reports from across the Mid-Tennessee area in high school football from Week 3 here on the Main Street Preps wrap-up show presented by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office.
He shoots, and he scores!
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
We're back here on the Main Street Preps high school football wrap-up show in Week 3. I'm Chris Yao. Again, glad to have you guys with us. Don't forget that the Tennessee Highway Safety Office reminds you that fans don't let fans drive drunk. Let's go now to Sumner County, where Blaine Kellar is standing by with a report.
Chris Bain said the quote of the week, beach football struggled until it survived for a win against Riverdale. That and more. Your Sumner County football snapshot from Week 3. I'm Sumner County Sports Editor Blaine Kellar here, breaking down the 9 area games that happened in our area Friday night. Starting with Beach, quarterback Caden Powell's 1-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter was enough for a 7-0 win against 6A Riverdale. The Buccaneers overcame a 35-minute weather delay because of lightning in the area. They also overcame 15 offensive penalties. They played without power forward prospect Quan Harris, who was nursing an ankle sprain. Their defense still forced 3 takeaways, and the offense figured things out late with an 80-yard scoring drive to dethrone the previously undefeated Warriors. Marshall County quarterback Tyler Thompson accounted for 5 touchdowns Friday as the Tigers won 40-7 in a region opener at Station Camp. The Bison didn't score until the fourth quarter, then trailing 40-0 and prompting this quote from Chris Bain: "Marshall County showed up to play a football game. I'm not sure what we showed up for." Station Camp fell to 0-3 and gears up to face Springfield as it continues its season. Other results included Gallatin's first shutout of the Michael Straub era. The Green Wave failed to score in a 27-0 loss to now Region 4-6A favorite Mount Juliet. Liberty Creek picked up its first win of the season. White House and Westmoreland started winning streaks. And some more scores: Brentwood picking up a 56-14 win at home against Hendersonville. CPA starting middle region play in Division II with a 42-9 win against JP2. And Davidson Academy breaking away late for a 31-20 win over Portland. That's your Sumner County football snapshot. Back to you guys.
Blaine, glad you were able to stay somewhat dry on Friday night as Beach and Riverdale had a heck of a battle. Appreciate that report. Let's go over to Robertson County now, where David Wilson has you covered. David?
Everybody, this is David Wilson, sports reporter for the Robertson County Connection, here to give you a quick recap of all the Week 3 games across the Robertson County area. The action kicked off last Friday night in Cross Plains as East Robertson, the number 1 ranked team according to the Tennessee Sports Writers Association in Class 2A, squeaked out a 7-point win over Monterey with a final score of 22-15. The Indians were trailing by 8 points with under 6 minutes remaining, but they scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to come back and get their first region win of the year. Casey Young was 13 of 19 for 192 yards and 2 touchdowns, also had 8 carries for 73 yards. And then Cade Brooks really came up big for the Indians in the fourth quarter. He finished the night with 10 receptions for 137 yards, one of those a go-ahead 24-yard touchdown pass with under 40 minutes remaining. And he also had the game-tying rushing touchdown on a 3-yard run on 4th and goal. So a nice night for Brooks with 2 total touchdowns as East Robertson remains undefeated on the year. Henry County slipped past Springfield to win their first region matchup of the year. Henry County wins by a final score of 23-22. Killian Snow, the kicker for the Patriots, had a go-ahead field goal with under 1 minute remaining, a 39-yard kick to help Henry County squeak past Springfield. Springfield led for the majority of this game as sophomore quarterback Kason Woodson returned from suspension. He had a good night offensively, leading the Yellow Jackets drives. He was 12 of 16 for 160 yards. Jaden Hurst had a nice night running the football for the Yellow Jackets, 7 rushes for 109 yards and 2 scores. And the Springfield defense bowed its neck once again. Joshua Philippe with a 24-yard fumble return to help the Yellow Jackets jump out to a 16-3 lead, but it was Henry County coming back to win to get their bid for a region title started on Friday night. Westmoreland picked up a 42-20 win over White House Heritage on Friday night. The Patriots struggled again, once again stopping the run and stopping a high-powered rushing attack. Quarterback Javier Murray for White House Heritage was 18 of 26 passing for 209 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also threw 1 interception. Dason Springer continued his monster start offensively for the Patriots at the wide receiver position, had 5 receptions for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns in that one. Moving on, White House picked up their first region win of the year. They defeated Montgomery Central 34-7. The Blue Devils were trailing 7-0 at the half and scored 34 unanswered points in the second half. Michael Albin tied things in the third quarter, and then Easton Biggs threw a pair of touchdown passes to help the Blue Devils get their second win of the year. Back-to-back weeks that the Blue Devils defense has really looked good. They held Montgomery Central, as I mentioned, to 7 points in that game and 0 points in the second half. Whites Creek moved to 3-0 this week as they defeated Greenbrier 52-15. Freshman quarterback Deion Barnes for the Cobras was 17 of 29 passing for 315 yards and 5 touchdowns against the Bobcats defense. Greenbrier trailed 20-0 in this game and scored 2 straight touchdowns to bring it within 5. Cameron Grizzard with his first rushing touchdown of the year, and then Luke Meyer with his second rushing touchdown. But it was all Whites Creek in the second half as they picked up the region win in that matchup. Whitwell, who was from the Chattanooga area, came up to Joe Burns on Friday night and handed the Red Devils a 49-7 loss. Joe Burns' lone touchdown came defensively as Montgomery County intercepted a pass and ran that one all the way back. Joe Burns is 1-2 on the year, and they will open up region play this week against Gordonsville. And then finally, Innovation Academy went to Chattanooga to face Grace Baptist on Friday night and fell by a final score of 41-6. Innovation Academy struggled offensively yet again. They did have a pair of rushers go over 60 yards, but it was really tough sledding for that Innovation Academy group that is still looking for its first win in program history. That'll do it here in Robertson County for Week 3. Looking forward to talking to you guys next week.
All right, David, thanks so much. Calvin White has you covered up in Montgomery County. Calvin, tell us what happened on Friday.
Hello, everyone. This is Calvin White, sports editor with Main Street, Clarksville, here to give you a quick recap of all the Week 3 football action in Montgomery County. 8 teams were in region action, started region play last week. We're going to start with Clarksville and Kenwood. Clarksville keeps on rolling. They win their 18th consecutive regular season game dating back to 2022 with a 42-12 win over Kenwood. Clarksville led 42-6 at the half and then just rolled to a 42-12 win over the Knights. Rossview led West Creek 14-7 at halftime and then held the Coyotes scoreless in the second half for a 31-7 win. Rossview starts 3-0 for the first time since 2013. Kirkwood keeps on rolling through the season with a 30-0 win over Northwest, another big game for quarterback Miles Redding. 9 for 16, 228 yards, 3 touchdowns. Josiah Claybrooks, 13 carries for 167 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Moses Bird, arguably the best performance out of anybody in the entire county. 3 catches, 140 yards, 2 touchdowns, 8 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, and a forced fumble on defense. Kirkwood wins 30-0 over Northwest. Dixon County shuts out Northwest 27-0. That game was called at halftime due to lightning. Dixon County upends Northeast 27-0. White House over Montgomery Central 34-7, and Sycamore over Clarksville Academy 36-0. I'm Calvin White, sports editor with Main Street Clarksville. I'll talk to you again soon.
Calvin, we greatly appreciate it. All right, we've got just a little bit more on the other side of our final break of the show. Thank you guys for hanging out with us here on the Main Street Preps High School Football Wrap-Up Show. We'll be right back after this. Stick around.
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
He shoots, and he scores!
And we're back here on the Week 3 High School Football Wrap-Up Show presented by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Remember, fans, don't let fans drive drunk. Let's go now to Casey Patrick, who has your Dixon and Cheatham County wrap-ups.
Hi, my name is Casey Patrick. I'm a sports reporter for the Dixon Post and the Cheatham County Exchange. We'll give you a quick rundown on Week 3 football action. We'll start with the game I was at. Dixon County hosted Northeast last Friday. The Cougars defeated the Eagles 27-0. That was the halftime score. Neither team wound up coming back out after halftime. Had some weather in the area, some lightning. The bottom absolutely fell out at the end of the second quarter. Everybody got rained on, but the Cougars looked pretty good. DeMarcus Strickland, 2 touchdowns, both on the ground. He had 100 yards through the air. Nick Street also had a pretty good day on the ground. I think he had about 60 yards and a touchdown. But moving on to Creekwood. Creekwood moves to 2-1 on the year. They lost to Pearl Cone last Friday, 41-7. Austin Barton found Jaden Elliott late in the second quarter. That was the Red Hawks' only score of the game. And then moving over into Cheatham, we'll start with Sycamore. Sycamore moves to 2-1 on the year. They've got another win after shutting out Clarksville Academy 36-0 last Friday. Hicks Hunter, he had 3 touchdowns three touchdowns 2 weeks ago. He had 4 touchdowns last Friday. He finished with 180 yards on 22 carries. But you got to give that offensive line a lot of credit too. Jeff Bell and the rest of those guys up there. Matthew Mitchell's another guy in the backfield with Hicks. They got a lot going on over there at Sycamore. The offense is really running now. So they moved to 2-1 with the win. Harpeth moves to 1-2 with the loss to Loretto on Friday. They lost to Loretto 34-7. The only score coming there, Charlie Wilson found C.J. Turner for a long touchdown pass, a 60-yard touchdown. Cheatham County Central moves to 0-3 on the year with a 48-16 loss to Cannon County. Luke Austin threw for a touchdown, and he ran for a touchdown as well. He threw the touchdown to Clinton, Canada. Cubs, like I said, they moved to 0-3 on the year. But that's your Week 3 wrap-up, and we'll see y'all later. Y'all have a good evening.
Casey, as always, greatly appreciated. Looking forward to seeing you guys on Thursday for the high school football preview show. And again, Thursday night down in Giles County, it's the Bobcats and Lawrence County in the Cowbell game. Wade Neely will have you on the call. So make sure to tune in to Main Street Media Game of the Week on social media and, of course, our Main Street Media TV platforms on Roku, Android, and Apple products, and, of course, your Amazon Fire Stick as well. Make sure to download that today and keep up with the latest in news, weather, and sports right here in Middle Tennessee. Once again, for all the folks at Main Street Media Television, I'm Chris Yao saying have a great day. We'll see you next time.
This is the Main Street Preps High School Football Wrap-Up Show, brought to you by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Fans, don't let fans drive drunk.